All right. Well, thank you for walking us through that. So let's move
Yeah.
into the teaching moment where you are going to talk about the stride and specifically how it should be initiated.
Yes, and this is kind of a continuation. So the last podcast, thank you everybody for listening and viewing it. I loved it myself. And the last teaching moment was on stability of the front leg, and I had great feedback from it, particularly from coaches who are always looking for ideas of how to teach the skills that happen within the pitching motion. And the pitching motion is a series of individual skills. It's why myself as a kinesiologist, I can break down each one of those skills. I can turn it into an exercise, a drill, and I teach the motion skill by skill. So we had this great episode where we talked about the front leg stability. Well, one of our listeners, hi Jesse, he wrote in and he asked a very interesting question. And then lo and behold, a few other coaches got in touch with me and their questions kind of were similar. So while creating a stride and getting the motion to be correct during the lower body is complicated. It all needs to start correctly. And I thought today I would talk about the initiation of the stride because last time we talked about, and if you haven't looked at the drills and heard that teaching moment, I suggest that you do that before you even listen to this. But we talked about the importance of the front leg being stable because once the front foot lands and the front leg is positioned, the body has to rotate completely around it. And this is sort of what we were talking about with Josh. His front leg doesn't land in the correct place to what's the correct place? A place that allows the hips to come through. And his hips can't come through. And that's because his foot isn't placed in the correct left to right position. However, you also have to be able to get to that front leg in order to have it be stable. So you've got to place the foot in the right place. Then you've got to get your body weight there. And so many of the questions were, these are great for keeping the front leg stable, but what if a guy can't keep it stable, usually because his body weight isn't there? And how do you get him to get into that front leg? So just to get everybody oriented here, picture the pitcher standing sideways, and he is, let's say he's coming from the stretch. He's going to go down the hill and his body should be in a sideways position all the way down the hill until the front foot lands. Okay, so picture him at a knee lift. So he's on one leg, his rear leg. The rear leg is the only leg on the ground. So when he starts his motion forward to land, to create the stability in the front leg, he has to move off of the back leg. And the $1 million mystery question to everybody is, how does he actually do that? Well, when I got a lot of questions from coaches, they were like, what if his leg is still moving or he's not really in the front leg? That's because the issue is that he did not shift his weight either fully or correctly. And of course, if it's incorrect, it won't be fully shifted. He did not weight shift correctly. So the movement from the back leg on the ground towards the front leg once it lands is a weight shift movement. And in the body, there is a muscle at the side of the hip, and you can look it up. It's called the gluteus medius, medius, and it is what we call in science a hip abductor. You do not have to remember that. It is designed to move the center of mass sideways. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you an idea of something that's really beautiful about when you use the correct muscle to make the movement happen. And there's a million ways pitchers try to get down the hill. They push hard, they turn their knee in, they do all these crazy things. They jump, they look like they're running. I mean, there's a million ways a pitcher on his own will think that he has to move to get to his front leg. But the truth is, using the correct muscle creates a lot of really great things for the pitching motion. So the photo that we're going to be looking at that is going to be up on my YouTube page, Angel Borrelli Pitching. And also, Joe, the photos are in the notes for the download, the app?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
they'll be in that.
Okay. So we've got two pictures here, and this is Ian from Utah. So in the photo on the left, you'll see him. He's just standing there. We were doing something else, but what this shows is what does he look like when he's just standing up? So what you're going to see here, he happens to have his arm in the perfect stride foot contact arm angle position. But we were doing this for another reason, but I needed to show you. So this is what somebody looks like when their weight is just being passed through both their legs. Look at his right leg. His right hip is right over the right leg. His left hip is over his left leg, and he's just standing there. This is the way normal hips look when you're just standing, loading both legs. Now, if you look at the photo on the right, I asked him to demonstrate what I just talked about, which is hip abduction. And really, it is the muscle on the side of the hip moving the pelvis sideways. In other words, he's weight shifting. And for all you guys that golf, this is the position your hips are in at just prior or right at the time of making contact with the ball. This is a weight shift movement that is used in any movement in life where you have to move sideways, including dancing, by the way. So, of course, this poor guy, he's laughing. He thinks this is so funny, but this is the movement. Now, what I want you to notice is first, look at the picture on the left. His hip is in normal resting length. On the picture on the right, he has taken the muscle that is right up. We're just going to say it's up. If you put your hand on your way up high by your belt and then you let your fingers go down sideways alongside your body, we'll just say that's where the muscle's at. It's got kind of a little different configuration, but for purposes of learning. And I asked him to just shift his weight into his left leg by using that muscle. And I had previously shown him where it was. And of course, he knows this because I work with his stride all the time. And that is what it looks like when you use that muscle to shift sideways. And guess what? If you look at a really good biomechanics book or books that really talk about structural biomechanics, et cetera, you'll see that one of the functions of that muscle is to move the center of mass sideways. Now, here's the thing I want everyone to notice. So he has shifted into his left leg. So he's shifting his weight sideways. And you can see that by seeing a clear angle to the leg. And you're following that, right, Joe?
Yep.
Okay, I want you to notice that his body, on his upper body, shifted over to his right, meaning it is leaning backward in a sense, not really leaning, but it shifted backwards as his hip shifted forwards. Do you see that, Joe?
I do.
Okay, now he didn't do that. And I want all of you coaches do this, stand up in front of the mirror and do exactly what you see him going from standing to this position. And the head and the upper body shift backwards. And Joe, when you were 3 years old, just a little pup, being taught how to throw or how to pitch or do whatever, didn't you hear, stay back with your head, stay back with your upper body?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
Yes, it's an important thing. But when you're told to do it, and it's not happening as a product of another movement that's being done correctly, you get weird things happening with the motion. So that is a non-issue if you teach the correct way to create the stride. Now what happens is the pitcher is coming down off his knee lift. He's moving sideways with his right hip. Just see how his pelvis is. His arm, his upper body then is staying back. So when he lands with his front leg, he hasn't overrun his front leg. He'll have good, stable position. And as he turns, he'll end up right over his left hip joint. So the beauty of moving from this muscle is one, you don't trash the knee because everyone thinks you turn the knee to get to the front leg. And trust me, the knee doesn't do that. Secondly, you get an efficient weight shift, which keeps your timing together. Third, you get the upper body staying back on its own so that you can create a good motion and have the correct timing again to get the arms where they need to get so that when you land, your arm is in the position Ian's is in the picture on the left. Your legs are in a perfect stride, and then you're in a perfect position to rotate. So the beauty of using the right hip muscle is one, efficiency. Two, it feeds all the other pieces that we need to have a good motion, which are timing and efficiency. So isn't that interesting?
It is. When I'm looking at these pictures at first, you mentioned dancing, and that's what went through my head. I'm thinking, is this guy doing the Macarena or what's going on here?
Well, trust me, they had their fun. All the guys were out there when we were doing this. And finally, Ian volunteered to, of course, be my guinea pig once again. And it was funny, the jokes that were being made. But yes, the back and forth movement. But anyway, so, and it's counterintuitive. And if you ask pitchers, and I dare all the coaches to do this, go out and ask your pitchers, hey, how do you get from the back leg to the front leg? You will hear the most interesting things, including that the front leg pulls you down the hill, which it can't because it's not on the ground, including that the knee does it. It can't because there's no muscle on the knee that does this sideways movement. And the foot can't do it because if you don't move anything else, your foot won't go anywhere. Your body won't go anywhere. So this is how you do weight shift. And if you're a golfer, coaches, this is a movement you need to know how to do and you need to know how to feel. So this is the answer and the little piece that a lot of coaches asked me about when they said, well, how do we get him to his front leg so that then we can work on it being stable? And this is the first piece to it. They have to move into their stride from this position. So practice, get them in the position that Ian's in on the left, have them slide step into a landing just when they're playing catch, have them do it flat and downhill, but have them intentionally use this muscle and have them swish their hips back and forth, even using the left hip for the righties. Have them go back and forth so they can kind of feel how they can feel where the muscle's at. Once they locate it, they will love it. And it's an extremely powerful muscle in the sense that it can give you that drive that you're looking for downhill, but not so fast that you're going to lose control. So there's the teaching moment for today.
Right. And if it helps, bring a boombox and play, Hey, Macarena. So they can swish their hips, as you
exactly.
say. Swish their hips. Yeah, I don't know if the coaches are going to use that.
I don't
They may
think
come
they'll
up with a
use.
different.
Did I say that?
You said swish their hips.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh! You know what? You can't take the girl out of the coach.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Guys. You'll come up with something better than swish the
yeah,
hips.
exactly. Shift the hips.
In all seriousness, this is like a great piece of advice and help here for Technique Angel, because if you don't get this right, then everything else is going to be broken. So
exactly.
And it is interesting how you connected this to the golf swing, because it's amazing how all sports require very similar athletic movements. And it kind of, makes you understand why some people are just really good athletes and some not great athletes. I mean, because the movements, they're just fundamental movements that go across all different sports.